their life to never view another person's happiness or attempt to block their path in life. Even though Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, it had no effect on the transgender citizens in this country. We cannot serve openly in the military, even though countless war veterans are transgenders who served their country risking life and limb as closeted transgenders. I am a former Marine. Semper Fi. Yet when the Employment Non-Discrimination Act was introduced in Congress in 1994, gender identity was not included. Gender identity was added for the first time in 2007, but was later dropped to the belief that a bill would be passed with gender identity included. It wasn't until Representative Barney Frank reintroduced the bill in 2011 that gender identity was once again included, and Senator Jeff Merkley introduced ENDA into the Senate. President Obama supports the legislation, but it still sits in the House and Senate because it is being blocked by those right-wing elected officials who are supported by the religious right. The Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA, must be repealed. Yet it is still being blocked by the right wing in the House and Senate, while President Obama and Vice President Biden have taken a public position in support of marriage equality. In our country today, there are two movements in progress. It seems to be a battle between the light and darkness, between good and evil. We have those who are experiencing suppression of equal rights, and those who would continue the denial of human rights. As spoken so eloquently by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his I Have a Dream speech, he shared his vision of the world where all people would live together in total equality. I also share that vision for all the people of the world. It is the same dream that has been shared by countless others throughout history. I have the dream of freedom, the right to marry the person I love, without the fear of my legal rights being stripped away. And I have the dream of the right to live my life in the pursuit of happiness and liberty, without the fear of death, for standing on the side of equal rights for all citizens in the United States of America. This same dream has been shared by the great emancipator Abraham Lincoln, by Lucy Burns and Alice Paul, who founded the Congressional Union for Women's Suffrage, and by the almost 1,000 women who were imprisoned under torturous conditions at the Occoquan Workhouse in Virginia as they fought for their right to vote. Let's not forget Mahatma Gandhi as he led his people to freedom. Nelson Mandela, who was imprisoned for 27 years for advocating the freedom of his people. John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, who sacrificed their very lives for freedom. And of course, Ted Kennedy, who lived and fought for freedom as a United States Senator until his death. Today, I honor the sacrificed lives of the leaders of the LGBT equal rights movement around the world, and especially those that have already given their lives in this fight. Harvey Milk, David Cato, Sylvia Rivera, and most recently a friend of mine from San Francisco, Brandy Martell, who was shot to death in Oakland. From the eastern seaboard to the Pacific Ocean, excuse me if I get a bit emotional there, it's still very painful having lost this valuable life. From the eastern seaboard to the Pacific Ocean, from the Canadian borders to the southernmost boundaries of our country, discrimination still rules the land. We have families who suffer in the fear of homelessness and hunger because because they are denied non-discrimination laws to protect them from unemployment simply because they are gay, lesbian, or transgender. We have families who cannot enjoy the sanctity of marriage and all the legal protections given to other families. We have a large portion of our population who still live in fear every day because they could, and many are, attacked while walking down the street as their authentic selves. I ask you, does this sound like the kind of liberty that Patrick Henry spoke of? Does this sound like freedom? How many deprivations must be experienced before we say, enough is enough? How many lives must be taken before we finally stand in unity? Through our beloved Foundation for International Justice, David and I are prepared to go the distance as we continue to lobby in Washington, D.C., organize rallies, and encourage and support a major march on Washington. We are even prepared to chain ourselves to the fence in front of the White House, if that's what it takes to get Congress to pay attention to what we are asking for and what President Obama and Vice President Biden are already supporting. Personally, we are not asking for equal rights. We are asking for our God-given and constitutionally guaranteed human rights, which are being denied through a subtle form of religious persecution. Although we do support the work of all organizations that are fighting for equal rights, we do not believe that taking on one state at a time is the ultimate answer. We believe that the time has come for our duly elected senators and representatives to take the necessary action required by the United States Constitution by protecting all American citizens from any form of oppression and protecting them from the denial of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We are lobbying for a Civil Rights Act to be drafted, passed in both the House and Senate, and signed into law by our President. Ultimately, we believe that absolute protection of equal rights for all American citizens can only be fully guaranteed by an amendment to the United States Constitution, and that is our ultimate goal. With such an amendment, there would never be the need for any citizen to have to fight the same fight for equal rights as countless people have done repeatedly throughout our history for each class of citizens, including blacks and women. This is our vision for the future, and we ask that you join with us and the millions of other Americans who truly believe in equality for all, and use your voice at every opportunity through the election process with letters to your congresspersons and senators, and with the full and willing support of a community that needs your help. Give me liberty or give me death. What did Patrick Henry mean by the statement? I believe his concept of liberty is best described in Webster's dictionary as the state of being free from oppression, tyranny, confinement, or slavery. Patrick Henry felt that if he could not attain liberty, he would have preferred death. What we have today in our country is not the liberty that Patrick Henry spoke of. Instead, what we have is the denial of equal rights for a segregated class of citizens based on the religious beliefs of those who believe that they have the right to dictate what all other people must believe. Those self-righteous religious beliefs are the driving force in the fight against our liberty, and they deny us our own religious freedoms. What we do see is legalized discrimination and the condoning of oppression, tyranny, and murder due to the refusal on the part of lawmakers to enact the very laws which could and would bring an end to so much needless death and suffering. Every year around the world, transgenders are still being brutally murdered because they have been born outside the boundaries of what some people consider normal. At the same time, we have a Congress that refuses passed legislation to guarantee equal rights for all Americans. And even worse, we have state legislatures that pass laws which intentionally discriminate against some of their own citizens. Many countries condone these transgender and LGBT murders, and some actually celebrate them. These murders have not lessened as the years have passed. Instead, they continue to grow every year. Once we have attained true freedom in the United States, the Foundation for International Justice will take this fight around the world in honor of our fallen heroes by lobbying for legislation and equality in every country on earth. Our fallen heroes yearned for freedom, and they cherished their life. Instead, their attackers chose to give them a horrible and unspeakable death. I would now like to ask the Reverend Kristen Harper to come forward and read the names of our dead, fallen, transgender, and LGBT civil rights heroes, including how they were murdered, so that in honoring their deaths, we may also honor their lives.